Hey everybody, welcome to episode 159 of the Bonehead podcast, where we talk all things Blood Bowl. And jingle. Welcome back. I'm Ben, and once again I'm joined by Blood Type Ben. BT, how you doing?
Hello. Yeah, really good. It's been a little while.
It has.
I think I missed the last pod. We haven't had Monday Night Blood Bowl. Yeah.
It's very nice to see you. And of course we're joined by Triple Pow as well. How you doing, Trips?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, life all good and calm compared to the craziness of no sleep, or worse still, locked prince in a garage.
Now, worryingly, you are now really super quiet. Did you get that, Ben?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah, I can hear him.
That's all
Oh
right.
dear.
We can figure that out. This is our fault for saying, yay, everything was working. Anyway, like Ben said, yeah, it's been a little while since we've got together and had a pod because we've got loads of stuff going on. But we've not really missed much in the Blood Bowl world. But there's still a couple of things we want to touch on today, isn't there, Ben? What are we hitting up?
Yeah, so we're going to touch on the NAF committee election, which just recently happened, and also the ongoing power struggle that's been happening there. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about, so let's go into that. And also we'll be looking at our predictions and hopes for Adepticon, which is next week, I think.
Exactly. Although Trips has got some potentially no-go thoughts on this one, but we will come back in a second. We'll do a quick tech check and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so as BT alluded to, there's some things going on in the NAF. Now, we don't have the full details on it, but we thought it would be worth at least talking about for a few minutes to see kind of what's going on, because I don't know about you guys, but I spend very little amount of time anywhere near the NAF website because it's quite, what's the polite word for this one?
Painful.
Yeah, seasoned, archaic. I don't know. It's only a couple of years away from Graham Hancock doing a Netflix show about it. It's that old. So yes, the NAF website is a bit ropey, shall we say? And basically, in a sentence, the NAF president was ousted by the board, or whatever they call themselves. Then the VP took over and immediately resigned, prompting another election at some point in some way. And this kind of happened very, very, very quickly. I think, Trips, did you link it into the chat?
Yeah, it was announced on the NAF Facebook group, and I think on their Instagram, and they put it in the community. So yeah, the president was voted by a majority of the organization's members should be removed, and the vice president, I think he did 2 official actions. So 1, we should have new elections. 2, I resign.
I like that. I did get the email about that, which I thought was the email was useful.
Yeah, thus creating the shortest span of president ever, which will be difficult to ever beat.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? The NAF is in a really interesting place because it's always been what it is, and that's been absolutely perfect. And you know, its primary role here. I mean, Ben, you're pretty well. You spent a lot of last year very much deep in the tourney circuit, right? So, and the NAF's primary function has been to give you stats and to track your games, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's that, and sort of, I want to say setting a benchmark for competitiveness, but
yeah,
but they're, you know, it's been really lenient with tournaments. You can basically do whatever you want for most of the time for Blood Bowl events. You can invent your own stars. You can do whatever you want with tiers. I think up until recently, the only thing you couldn't do was ban star players, but now you're allowed to ban specific star players. So, like, as far as maintaining that line of competitiveness for Blood Bowl, it's basically let people run Blood Bowl tournaments however they want, because that's the beauty of Blood Bowl, right? You build a tournament, you come up with its own identity. I mean, Trips, we've done loads of different tournaments with loads of different identities, right? So it's a benefit.
Yeah, definitely. It's been there to provide. Initially, I mean, look, it was there to maintain a rule set, which GW have now picked up, and it is now there to provide that basis for tournaments. And probably the bigger basis is for the majors and the World Cup to provide that consistency and an organisational backing to some substantially huge events.
Yeah, which I think is a brilliant thing to point out, because most people interact with the NAF in the way of, have I paid? Am I active? I might check my stats, and is the tournament I'm going to NAF registered? That's like it. But you're exactly right. Without the NAF, we wouldn't have had the Ben. How many was it? Like 2,000 people last year at the World Cup?
2,400, I think.
Yeah. Without the NAF, that would not have happened. I mean, you get the NAF C and stuff where there's like 300 players, but
Yeah.
2.5 grand of players is fantastic and outrageous, and could only happen because of the way the NAF operates. But last year, I can't remember what his name was. Kalashnikov was voted Shirokov. There you go. Thank you, Ben. Was voted in as the president. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then it went wrong. Cuba did that, didn't they? But yeah, something to do with the Kalashnikov and a failed presidency. Yeah, so Shirokov was voted in, and part of the stuff, because I remember us talking about it, right, was about it felt like he wanted to move it away from the Games Workshop sphere of operations, and
Yeah.
that was something that we were
a little
concerned about.
A little bit more like independence and control over like what teams get added, and what, like, you know, if GW come up with a new team, they sort of have like a House of Lords pass over it before it gets actually made official. Yeah.
That is actually that is a very apt description of the NAF Rules Council. That's amazing. That's why so many people feel a bit uncomfortable by it. Yeah. So there was all that drama around that last year. Obviously, that's just not come to pass. So Shirokov, that's right. You're right, Ben. Sorry, it is on the screen here. Because one of the things Trips linked me to was the it's now 9 pages, the big forum discussion around actually what's happened, why has this been like, why has it gone on, how has it been okay to go on, and stuff like that. I actually, to this point, I've read through 7 of the 9 pages, and then I actually still don't know what really happened. I know that there have been some podcasts that have covered it, but I don't know. I personally have not massively fussed about finding out what has happened, but do you guys have any insight? Have you seen anything kicking around that's got a bit more backing to it?
No, not really. Like, again, like, all I really heard from other sort of like different groups and things was like there was something to do with him, the president, not being, or accusations, I should say, that the president was like not really present in a lot of committee discussions, and sort of took quite a laid back approach, and I think sort of had the ambition, had the goals he wanted to achieve, and was not that interested in sort of the administration, day-to-day running of the NAF operations and things. So that seems to be like what I heard. So it seemed like it was an internal removal of, you know, we kind of want someone who's a bit more proactive. That seemed to be the attitude.
That's the comments I've heard of.
Dereliction of duty was the phrase that was being used, and
there you go.
And I know, and you can see it through the announcements and details. There was clearly some evidence provided to the NAF members. The NAF members, I think, voted 4-1 for removal.
The NAF committee, not the NAF members, because that's a big thing that's come out.
It's one of the ones where the terminology of this is really important, in line with charters and details.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, you can quickly get yourself into a very big pile of internet forum comments.
Yeah, that's what I delved into. So the current status is that the Board of Ethics are now rebuilding the charter, and I think after that they can elect a new president with clarification on who can fire whom. Because I think the one of the fallout is that I think, like, one thing I read was that the president tried to remove somebody else and wasn't allowed, so therefore stopped coming to meetings, and therefore was kicked out because he wasn't allowed to do anything. I don't really know any more than that. But the point is that I guess it leads to my big question. Given that the NAF's main role is to basically store stats and to fund big events, does this matter?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's it's really weird for us because also we're like a lot of the tournaments we run aren't NAF approved, and I like the ones that there are, and I like there's the NAF as this governing body. But I know what you mean of just like how is this going to change anything? Like, what's this? What does this mean? What does this actually mean?
Because if the stats keep getting logged, which they do because the coaches log them, and tournaments keep getting approved because it's the volunteers, like the regional TOs, regional tournament. I can't remember what they're called, but like lunch money and stuff like that. Lunch money and Stimmer, like those are the guys who help and support and organise and tick things off and chase people if they don't do things right. Like they're the ones who I think kind of keep the engine of the NAF running. So I don't know if a president is really necessary.
I'll tell you what made me think of it as well was it was something I mentioned at the start of the episode. I misspoke. It was the Team England committee elections that recently happened, and friend of the podcast and personal friend Greenskin Phil did get
Kidnapped you,
elected
yeah.
after keeping me hostage for a couple of days. But
Smash, I think.
yeah, like 90 votes to 13, I think it was. But there's a second place also ongoing. I think that'll be over by the time this goes out though. But like as part of that like campaign election for like a Team England committee, that was really hopeful because they were now talking about like being a sort of central body for like England Blood Bowl that can like help, coach people, like be sort of a hub that people can like follow the players and then make it like a big supporting group that, we can like rely on for things like if you want to get better, you can look at tips, you can look at these like pro players like doing things, and then it was just like expanding it more than just a squad of like 8 people who just go to international tournaments and play. More about like what's the word? Is organization, I guess, where that's for everyone. That is like this is England Blood Bowl, and then Scotland Blood Bowl will have theirs, and then Spanish Blood Bowl and things like that. And I think that seems more like what I think the NAF should be doing. Of the NAF should be like putting out event material, like coaching material, things that highlighting important games, and so you get to follow players who are potentially doing really well on the tournament circuit and seeing how they play and breaking down their strategies and things. I think that would be like really cool, and that's I think what I kind of want more from the NAF. And
do you know what's awesome about everything you just said? That is what I campaigned on.
Yeah, I know.
Wanted to be the NAF president, and came third out of 3, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It was probably a godsend actually. And Geixo did a brilliant job for 2 terms.
To do that.
Like Geixo absolutely crushed it. So the right person won. Like it was awesome, and a very very big learn for me. But like that is exactly I think what the NAF. I think that's what. It's not the NAF we need, but it's the NAF we want. And I think if we could choose one of the two, it doing what it's doing now as being like a stats bank is probably the thing that we need it to do. Because if that went away, that would actually be, I mean, again, it wouldn't really matter, but it's really important because it's always been there. And I think if that was to disappear, what would happen is you'd have the tour play rankings, and then you'd have this club's rankings, and you'd have like a complete feudalism. So having the NAF be like the one bank of data, I think is the most important thing that it does currently. And yeah, media has never really been the NAF's strong point at all, which is fine.
It's not strong at communication, and it's been getting better at communication in more than just English. But it's definitely not one of its stronger points. And I think, and this is sort of sums it up. The latest that I think is that we're in the nominations period for new president at the moment, because I think the charter change is going on in parallel. But I couldn't.
Okay.
Two factors on this. So I think we're in the period where we're in nominations from the 16th to the 23rd of March, and then Q&A will start after that, and voting will start 30th of March.
Oh, I did have a look at announcements today to see.
Oh, this is where it's fun, because if you look on the NAF forums and can find the announcement forums and details, you can't find any of this information there.
You see that I do think is not good enough. Like as archaic as the NAF forums are, like that's historically where it like it's always been. Like that's where you go because that is the only time people bother to use it. But I mean, you know what? Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. And as long as nothing changes in the way that the NAF collects data, I mean, it could even get better. There we go. There's my little thread back in 2020. Good times.
God.
Good times. Before the apocalypse. That's quite exciting. Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I don't think one great thing that's come out of this is, and I think we talked about this before when Kalashnikov was voted in, was we were worried that this would cause a schism in the NAF. And I think one of you two, if not both of you, were like, I just can't see anybody having enough power to override the rest of the board and to actually do these things that are going to essentially hurt it. And I think that's probably right. I think that's, you know, to an extent what's happened. Shame they didn't get to bring Bretonians back, but, you know, who knows? Who knows?
That might come up in the second segment.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so an interesting one. Interesting one. We'll have to watch that. But ultimately, the point of this is not to downplay the importance of the NAF. It's actually just to say that those of you who are tangentially involved in the NAF or medium involved in the NAF, nothing is going to change. So it's fine. Like the stats will keep going, the tournaments will keep being run. It's nothing to kind of worry about, which I think is really, really good. And it's actually quite nice to be like, do you know what? I don't really care what happens here because I don't think fundamentally they're going to change what the core principle of the NAF is to support those big events and to track the stats. Obviously, we would like for the NAF to do more and be more, but it's a volunteer organisation, so with financial issues, so they're not really ever going to be able to afford to do much, and that I think is totally fine. And to your point, Ben, about like Team England and stuff, if there are other groups of players, you know, like us, who want to do stuff to create outreach for Blood Bowl, I think that's just organic. That just grows by itself, and I think that's everything we need, to be honest. Any more thoughts on the NAF shenanigans?
I just hope it's you know, an opportunity to maybe restart things. But yeah,
I'd like them to get it over with, get it on with, and get back to sorting out the World Cup and giving us more details about Malta World Cup.
Yeah, I think bring back Geixo. That's what we need to do. He was a good lad. Right, let's talk about exciting things now. So the Adepticon is coming up next week, and last year, 10 days before, they dropped this article here. This is the Adepticon 2024 Jobby What's It, and they have this image, the image that we always look at and go, ooh, where's Blood Bowl, where's Blood Bowl, where's Blood Bowl? So this time last year, there was nothing at Adepticon because at the Warhammer World Anniversary, Gnomes were previewed. So Gnomes were previewed a few weeks before Adepticon. This year, Adepticon is happening next week. I have heard that the preview show is going to be Monday or Tuesday night into Wednesday or Wednesday morning for England point of view. But very much, I think, to what you kind of alluded to earlier, Trips, when we were kind of talking or in the chat, is that we have yet to see a preview article about the preview, and it's now Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's less than a week to go. I mean, before we get excited, or even, do you think this means there's not going to be an Adepticon preview?
So yeah,
go ahead, Trips.
My thoughts were that I was thinking the fact that we haven't had a tease of a preview, because we know GW loves a preview of a tease of a tease of a preview of a preview.
Really do.
The fact that we haven't had one suggests there isn't a lot to tease at this point in time, or they're not running a big show and they're just going to drop some interesting things in parallel.
Can we talk about Games Workshop's preview and release schedule and stuff like this at the moment? Because last year it felt like these previews were absolutely slapped about. There were really big, prominent things, and a lot was brewed up about it. It feels like the Games Workshop previews like this year have been a little more subtle. Do we think that they're just having a bit of a shift change, and instead of doing big preview shows, they're just releasing Necromunda models every Monday instead?
I think they completely just run out of steam. I think they've shot themselves in the foot with how much they can actually do, and but they always had this pattern of just we will do everything every week or new things every week, and it's just I don't know how they operate anymore.
So LVO was the last one, and I did do a proper preview show for LVO. That was only the 17th of January, so it was only 2 months ago. It's just been a very long 2 months. That feels like forever ago now.
Mm.
Oh, and they did a preview of a preview there, so they're not completely clean of this yet. They did a preview of a Beastman preview that, yeah. Nomads have just come out, just coming out, Trips, is that right?
Yeah, just are on pre-order at the moment, so...
The Emperor's Children came out last week as well. That finally released.
They did. Not really sure about those robots because I feel like they've been out forever. What was the big... They haven't released the Undead yet, have they? I don't think. The replacement bits.
I don't know.
I don't think they've done those, but they've done the Wolf Boys because Warhammer's been painting some up.
Get Mob ones, yeah, they came out.
This is interesting. Before that, they had a World Championships preview in November. So they are still kind of going along with this thing. So, yeah. Okay, let's assume that we will see an Adepticon preview, but it's going to be announced today or something like that. Let's start with Blood Bowl. I think...
I'm really confused because it wasn't on the splash screen. And do they ever talk about it? If there isn't an image for, like, we will be talking about this in this show.
Well, that was the 2024 splash screen.
Oh, sorry, was it? Oh, sorry, I thought that was this one.
They haven't even done a splash screen yet.
Oh, okay, suddenly my hopes are raised. I saw that on the screen. I thought, oh, no, it's over. Why are we even talking about it?
Yeah, no, they've not even done a splash screen yet. This is what Trips was sort of saying, like, is it going to happen? Because there has been no splash screen, and it is next week, right? So... are we going to have a preview? I assume that we will, because Adepticon is too big of a game thing. It's too big of an event. But the Games Workshop are not against separating themselves from the culture, are they?
No, but I mean, it is a big hype moment. And we haven't had anything. I'm still really, I think I'm really clutching at straws now, and it's never going to happen. But, because the Emperor's Children did come out.
I know where you're going.
I'll say no more on it, but
I think you've been saying this since Slanesh came out for Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, I know.
Like, they've just dropped Slanesh. They should be dropping a Slanesh team in Blood Bowl because they've got all the assets there. No, they've reused the assets in 40k 2 years later.
I'm all out of opium.
I know. But look, it's the beginning of the year. Well, the beginning of the year is gone now. It's now spring. Oh yeah, the clocks change soon. Which way do the clocks go?
Wait, do they?
Bring forward, fall back.
Yeah, forward.
They go forward. So would it now be, it's now 12 o'clock. Would it now be 11 o'clock or would it be 1 o'clock? Oh, 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock now?
It's 12 o'clock now. It'll be 1 o'clock.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. Yes. All we have to do is keep Libby on her broken schedule, and she'll start getting up at 6:30 a.m. And all we needed to do was change time. That's great. All right. Okay. Sod Adepticon. There's now hope in my life.
Parenting hacks they don't want you to know about.
if it's broken, wait 6 months because it'll either get much worse or much better. Oh, that's an absolute massive win. Thank God for that. Right, cool. So it's springtime and there's still a big lead time with releases. This time last year we had Gnomes spoiled at the Warhammer World thingy on like the beginning of March. Let's type in Gnomes and see what happens. So if they were going to drop, so 31st of March was the Sunday preview for them, and the 2nd of March was the Warhammer World Anniversary show. So that's 4 weeks. Let's just say 4 weeks from show off to Sunday preview. So Adepticon drops end of March. I mean, we still could be looking at May, even if this team even if there is something, like if there is a team or whatever. And the question for you guys that I wanted to ask is not will we see anything, because we're going to see something that is positivity manifest. I don't know. I Brexit margin think we're going to see something, but I've decided that that's just yeah, round up equals round up. So 100% we're going to see something. Is it going to be a team? Is it going to be a supplement? Is it going to be a new edition? Blood Tithe, go.
I think new edition.
Ooh.
I think it's been so long now, and it's due. And if it's not this one, I don't think we're gonna get one.
That's quite fair, actually. Trips.
So yeah, that's just it for me.
Okay, so I'm in a similar position, Brexit margin, whether we'll have a preview or not. If we don't have a preview, well, that's easy. We don't have anything. If we do have a preview, it will be a new team, and we'll see it.
New team.
New team or legend?
Oh,
I think it's Team of Legend time.
they dropped gnomes. They went chaos dwarfs. So new team, old team. I mean, there's no pattern, there's no rhyme or reason with what Games Workshop do, which I actually do quite like. Like, I think it's just more interesting that way for it to be kind of randomized. So
predictably unpredictable.
Yeah, I like that very much. So Nova is when the Chorfs were shown off. They were shown off at Nova. So is that basically, if we don't get anything exciting, the problem is, I remember this very clearly because I was waiting at a train gate in Totton and I got a little ping on notification saying, Lizardman team on a Sunday night, just like, boom, here you go, Lizards are coming. And I just remember being like, what the hell? There's no preview show, there's no nothing. So I live in a state of constant anxiety where Games Workshop could just literally just be like, oh, you know what? We forgot to tell anybody about this. Here you go. Here's a new team for Blood Bowl, because obviously it's a marginally small thing. So I'm with you guys. I think, well, I don't know. I mean, because if they don't drop something, they could just randomly drop something. So Adepticon last year, that's where we are basically now. And then they did a Mortal Realms thing that no one cares about. There was a Warhammer preview in May that looks like it was just for the sake, for the lols, which had some pretty cool stuff. That was when the old Spires were shown off, which is cool. Then there was a random preview later in the year, and then a Nova in August. So it is just about whether they consider Blood Bowl hype enough. And Ben, if you are right and this is a new edition, you've got to assume that new editions land at big events, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's a spectacle. It wants to be. They want to get as many eyes on it as possible. So it makes the most sense rather than just do like a one-off article on Warhammer community. Not really the way to do it.
And
not really the way they have done it.
They've actually, I don't think the Blood Bowl box set was prior to them updating the website. So this isn't an Age of Sigmar year. That was last year. 40k was the year before. This is their odd year, right? The world of speculation where people think it's going to be Horus Heresy. It's like the big box game. They dropped Lord of the Rings last year, but there was a very minor box set drop, right? Trips, you're more in touch with like the specialist games than we are. So like Warcry, Kill Team, and Munda got a box set last year. Kill Team gets a box set every Thursday.
Kill Team's just had a big update. Warcry had an update last year, so they are running out of other games to have a new box of, unless they're going to skip the cycle.
Because I wonder if that's, I just don't know if they're big enough releases. So it, like Ben said, like it's 2025. This edition's now been out. This is its 5th year. It was showed off in the autumn, I think, of 2019, I think, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe it dropped in. No. What were we playing at the first Beachhead? That was 2016 rules, wasn't it?
Yes, it was before the new edition.
So it was the end of 2020 they dropped out. So
yeah,
okay, let's assume that year they dropped just vampires, that everything just ended up being 6 months behind. This would line up then with a 4-year anniversary of 2020 being revealed in 2020 in like October, November 2020. This is why there's so much like rumor and speculation, is because the moons are lining up. Like this. Tatooine Sky.
Yeah, my negative slope reality side of that is that was their cycle, but everything has slowed down. We've seen the preview window go from 1 week to 2 weeks. We've seen the number of those where they're not available in all parts of the world, and it's slowly catching up. I think we are in a slowed down cycle in detail, but I can't work out what the other big thing would be that they'd announce at Adepticon, because you'd have to announce something other than here is another Space Marine captain, here is another wonderful.
Well, they've just done like a big splash 40k release, right? With the pink boys. They've just done quite a big splash AOS stuff with, I guess, is it a big splash? I don't know, like with the goblins, and that's kind of a new army that they're bringing in. Necromunda will always get some stuff because it's just
There's always another book.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah. There's always another book. There's always another codex. There's always another army book to release.
There's always a bigger fish. Adepticon. I'm just trying to think. The good thing about the old Adepticon thing is it lists all of the other games that go on out there that we don't want that. We don't want that. That's trash. Oh, I've got to type it in again. Come on. Talking of good websites. Let's put the NAF one up there with the Warhammer website. So last year, 40k, Age of Sigmar. They're both, I think, we could. I mean, Ben, I don't think you're involved in AOS in any way, shape, or form anymore, are you?
I remember the last time I played it.
Well, that's a very different question.
Yeah, true.
Warcry, like Trip said, they got a big box set last year. Warhammer the Old World, we might see them show off Beastmen. High Elves are landing now, but that's not a big thing. Kill Team, we're in a solid season now, right, Trips? Because they dropped the Halflings as like the sub release for this one, so they might. And no, they've just. Is that the Halfling one? Or they've just dropped. No, they've just dropped the Bloodletter guys, haven't they?
Yeah. The only game we are thinking about it that we could be seeing is Underworlds is about 6 months into its new edition, so that would feel tough for a seasonal change or a shift of another starter boxer.
If they want to carry that on is the question, or whether they'll let that kind of die away now they've got the Old World. And it's a weird one. Warcry and Underworlds, they're like some of the best models that they produce for the two games that I don't think I see anybody ever playing. Like, ever.
It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I love Warcry.
Warcry is great.
Yeah, I think Underworld has a good system with a bad model.
Oh, that's a hot. Yeah, that's bang on.
Yeah. So it's a shame. It's a shame because I do love those, and yeah, you're right. The models are amazing. The Hashut guys that they made for Warcry are so good. Like they're like some of my absolute favorite things. I still need to paint them.
I don't think they've made a bad release for Warcry. It's just it's just very unsustainable. Warhammer Underworlds, I think, would have been much better if it was a 40k setting, because I just think that goes hand in hand.
Maybe.
But Old World's good. So Horus Heresy, it could be Horus Heresy this year is like the big thing, but it does feel like Trip said, all of the other games are kind of in a stable place. Blood Bowl, it feels like, is waiting. So I'm still hopeful that tomorrow we'll get a Games Workshop drop. They'll have the image, we'll see the logo of Blood Bowl, and then I can start trying to convince Tiff that I need to be out here at 3 a.m. Which, thanks to Libby, is not going to be a massive problem at the moment. So that's really beneficial.
Hey, if there is when is it? I was going to say, if there is a release, then I might drive over for 3 a.m. to do a stream.
You'll still be painting, so yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Just jump on live stream. You can watch along. Right. Okay. Right. So we've all kind of got our speculations. What would we not want to see? What would be the least exciting thing for any of the editions? For anything, the least or most exciting for any of the games? Not just Blood Bowl. Obviously, a new edition would be the hype for Blood Bowl. Another team would also be pretty awesome for Blood Bowl. I mean, a little expansion would be okay, but would be really, I think underwhelming. I don't think Gutter Bowl landed brilliantly. So, and I think they've done Dungeon Bowl, and they've clearly lost interest in it with the death matches, which is a shame because Dungeon Bowl is actually awesome. They need a tile pack for all Games Workshop games. But you guys call it big or little for any of the games that are kicking around. What would be really exciting or really disappointing?
Disappointing for this would just be like a couple of star players. That would just be like, especially for Adepticon. I just wouldn't be there. Like I do think the addition for me would just be really good, because I think Tournament Blood Bowl at the moment is at such a good place.
Yeah.
And I think with potential like new NAF structure, maybe Team England sorting out, I think there's loads of tournaments coming up. Like once Eurobowl's out the way, we can start playing some cool rule sets, and then but with the whole new like edition, that would be like such a total reset that
At a really healthy point.
it would just make it so exciting again. And I think that's what we need. Is we're at such a good place with tournaments that just something to just completely scramble the waters and reset things. That gagging for it.
I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree more with that. I just don't think they'd bother showing it. That's, having nothing would be better than just showing off a couple of stars. What about you, Trips? Any ideas? Any hopes? Any dreams?
So I hope that they don't tweak rules, that if and this is for Blood Bowl and any of the games, that if there are going to be changes, they are substantial changes. I think the worst thing you could do is almost just play around and nerf a few things or FAQ a few things. I think that'll be almost dragging it out, particularly for Blood Bowl. We've lived quite well without an FAQ for the last
6 months.
So we don't need tweaking. There are some fundamental things that could do with change and detail, and that will make it interesting, because if it's not if it's not a complete reset, then there are a lot of people playing a lot of games. So the ability to go, oh, I don't quite know how this will work, that's always fun.
Yeah, it gives you that exploration space, doesn't it? There's not a lot left to hope for Games Workshop. They did bring back Epic 40k, and it landed terribly with an awful roll-off system for Legions Imperialis, and that game is dead on arrival. Lovely models, but a terrible, unworkable rule set. So that's really disappointing. Battlefleet Gothic would also Battlefleet Gothic, or do you know? I reckon we're due for a Space Hulk. For the sake of it, it's been like 10 years since they did Space Hulk again. So
do you reckon they'll do it as like Warhammer Quest?
I don't think so.
City.
I think those rules have been the same. They've been the same since the early 90s, and I just think that's going to be like, at some point they're going to have to do it. But very much like, I would love some kind of Warhammer Quest again, because did you guys ever play what was the 40k one, Blackstone Fortress?
Yeah, I played it a bit.
I didn't get a chance to play it, but I watched a lot of GMG play it, which is what got me hyped for Cursed City, and that was a slippery slope of joy and just bad stuff. So them dropping another game like that would be quite interesting. It'd be something like a side quest. If we can't get some Blood Bowl stuff, obviously a new edition for Blood Bowl would be absolutely brilliant. I think like them just dropping a team would still be really, really, really good, but brand new stuff would just be old stuff. Like if they brought back Battlefleet Gothic, I would struggle not to be very excited for that. Or actually some kind of Warhammer Quest thing, because they don't really have one at the moment, and the box set stuff, it does very, very, very well for Games Workshop normally, because it relives that.
It's wild.
It relives that Hero Quest vibe, Trips, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I can't see that kind of thing coming, because there's a lot in the market at the moment. So it used to be that you'd buy it if Game Workshop came out. There's a lot of other things to go and pick up on shelves.
Yeah, board games have advanced a lot in the last 10 years, like a lot. And I don't know if the Warhammer board game design has really caught up with it.
Oh, it definitely hasn't. It definitely
it's very
hasn't.
old school.
It definitely hasn't. It's the idea, it's the hope, it's I can change him mentality about Game Workshop board games.
This time it'll be better, I promise.
Exactly.
We've seen they could put something out, they could put it on a limited run, everyone could get excited by it, everyone will buy it, and then they'll go back to 40k coders.
Yeah.
Do you know, I think they've saturated the kill team market now a little bit, where because they release them so frequently, they kind of lost a little bit of like, oh, that's cool and interesting hype, which is good because I think that means they're landing it as a standardized game instead, which is like a cool little thing. But I think having those little box releases where it's like, that's something that I do think they are missing in the Games Workshop thing. You're very much right, Ben. Like their developmental game design is not their strong suit because it's not what they need to do. But a boxed game with 1 or 2 like expansions coming down the line is something that Games Workshop don't do, and I think there is a market there for it because Games Workshop players, you kind of either got the omni buyers, right, where you're living the game, or you've got, which I think is something that we fit the niche of now in the Blood Bowl world. It's like the people who want to be involved but don't want to have to buy everything frequently. They just kind of, not a one and done, but like a top-up shopper, as we call it in the retail world. So having like a Mordheim release or something like that, where it's like, here's 1 box, and then in 3-6 months we'll release a supplement for it with some extra models or something. Very much the Blackstone Fortress thing, I think, is something that they don't have, and I think there's money there potentially. But
yeah,
I could be just that just might be where my head is. But yeah, come on, let's go Adepticon. Yeah, so I'd be happy with any of that. But I think that's everything we need to touch base on with Blood Bowl at the moment. I'm just trying to think if there's any cool news or Kickstarters going on out there that I haven't seen. Oh, Blood Bowl 3 actually. Trips. Amazons are out now?
Amazons are out, yeah. Eternal League is in place and on for PC alone. Long live, long die Switch owners and ever getting it. So yeah, it's still there. It is. I mean, it is light years away from when it launched in the beta, and we all tested it for ages. But good community still playing it.
Oh my!
Have they? So are they still planning a Switch release, or have they just said it's not going to happen?
It was in the last roadmap, but then again, we're still on the last roadmap because they had to fix so many things. So
I was going to say, there's only 2 weeks until they're announcing the Switch 2. So
yeah, well, we joked about that with Milton, didn't we? He was like, "When's it coming?" And we're like, "Well, about that."
To be fair, sort of the way Blood Bowl games work, doesn't it? The game comes out 4 years later. The PC game comes out 6 years later. All the teams are in it.
That does have me very, very nervous for if they drop a new edition.
Oh my god, yeah, that's so true.
Is that people are still playing Blood Bowl 2 because they don't trust Blood Bowl 3, and then Blood Bowl 3, if Games Workshop sticks to its 4-year release schedule, will then be out of date, and there'll still be people playing Blood Bowl 2, and it's really quite an interesting thing. I mean, look at this. Like, this is a complete aside. I'm not sure if you can see it, but this just happened outside West Quay. Like this massive explosion. What? Basically, a van with a gas canister caught fire. Oh, hopefully not. It just exploded outside West Quay. Sam, my brother's just sent me that. I know. That's crazy. I hope everything is okay. What a time to be alive. Maybe it's a protest that we don't have anything. The Adepticon article isn't up yet.
Yeah, probably.
Right, guys. It's nice to see you. It's nice to chat Blood Bowl. And I think we'll call it quits there for a day. But yeah, thanks very much for joining us. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl and other news. Hey, hopefully we'll be back next week with Adepticon news. Let's do that. Anyway, we're going to wrap up. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking.